Greetings all, my name is Ayanda Zulu and welcome back to the channel. We're still doing our series of videos on our Liberty First papers, and today I would like us to focus on our latest paper on regulation, which has been authored by our policy officer Zakhele Mthembu, and its title is Diffusing the Joblessness Time Bomb, Restoring Dignity and Choice Through Labor, Regulation, Exemption. And now this intervention of course comes against the backdrop of the latest unemployment statistics being released in the country as per the quarterly labor force survey. Now in quarter two, the conservative unemployment rate in this country sat at 33.2%. The latest statistics show a marginal decline to 31.9%. But to give you the bigger picture here, the expanded unemployment rate in South Africa, which includes discouraged job seekers, sits above 42%. But for the purposes of this video, I want us to focus on youth unemployment, which is also really a key target of this latest paper on regulation. And there, I don't want us to focus on the youth cohort that is between the ages of 15 and 35. Rather, I want us to look at the specific cohort of young people between the ages of 15 and 24. And the unemployment rate there, between 15 and 24, is 60% and above. And another important fact in that regard is that those young people who fall between the ages of 15 and 24%, or 15 and 24 rather, the vast majority of them have no matric, which means they constitute what is known as low-skilled labor. And really, these are young people who have been unemployed for a long time. They've experienced chronic unemployment. They have no income. They have no means to sustain themselves. And as a result, they have become available for all kinds of mobilization by populists on the left and on the right of our politics. And a dangerous myth that is being spread by populists, right-wing populists in this country, is that immigrants are the source of unemployment. It is immigrants who are stealing jobs from locals and therefore they need to be expelled. But a key insight from this paper is that this is not true. This claim is not true. The real source of unemployment in this country is not our immigrant population, but rather rigid labor legislation on the side of government, right, which comes in the form of minimum wage, and there are other pieces of legislation like the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the Labor Relations Act. These are all examples of laws that have driven up the cost of doing business, driven up the cost of labor, and really discouraged investors and people who have money in this country from creating jobs for people who have no jobs in this country. Now, if you think I'm making this up or I'm manufacturing this argument, the late former finance minister, Tito Mboweni, who was also the first labor minister post-94 and was a key architect of these laws that I've mentioned, like the Labor Relations Act. Back in 2021, when he was finance minister, even he said that there is a need to reassess some of the country's labor policies because he believed then that they had a very negative impact in terms of employment and in terms of small and medium businesses, which should be the engines of growth and job creation in this country. So the point that he made then was that, yes, we have these laws, we believe they are necessary, but we also have to consider their unintended consequences and we need to reassess them and whether or not they are serving the interests of this country in terms of creating jobs and allowing small and medium businesses in this country to thrive. So that is a very important point because you have someone here who was part of drafting these laws and creating them, saying he believes that it is time for us to reassess them because they've had a negative impact on our economy. Now, onto the paper itself and what it proposes. The paper really proposes what is known as the Job Seekers Exemption Certificate. And this is a mechanism which was first developed by one of our co-presidents here at the FMF, Mr. Eustace Darby. And what JSEC really is that it is a mechanism that allows anyone who has been unemployed for more than 6 months and can prove it to exempt themselves from all the labor laws that I've mentioned in this country for 24 months or a period of 2 years. I must repeat this. JSEC allows any person who has been unemployed for more than 6 months to exempt themselves, to voluntarily exempt themselves from all labor laws in South Africa for a period of 2 years. Now, how would JSEC, of course, look like in practice and in terms of its mechanics? Now, of course, onto implementation first. There are two parts here. You either have to implement JSEC as a standalone act, meaning you need the Job Seekers Exemption Certificate Act, which needs to be passed in Parliament, of course, as a law, and then it comes into effect, or you can make amendments to existing legislation that allow them to accommodate the provisions, of this JSEC certificate. Now, in terms of how it would look like in practice, you would really have a decentralized system that operates through municipalities. So this isn't a centralized system where you have one organization distributing certificates. They would be distributed through municipalities. So if you're a young person in any part of the country, you can go to your nearest municipality where you go and apply for a JSEC. If you can prove that you've been unemployed for 6 months and more, you can then obtain the certificate and voluntarily exempt yourself from all these labor laws that have destroyed our economy and employment for a period of 2 years. You can exempt yourself, you can take the certificate, and you can go and negotiate for employment with anyone on your own terms without being held back by all these laws that have really been passed by the state and have had a negative impact on our economy. Now, in terms of evidence and where the rationale comes for this economically, we have something known as the employment tax incentive in this country. And how it works is that people who employ young people, businesses that employ young people, are given tax breaks. They're given incentives for employing young people in this country. And that is the same logic that we have here with JSEC, which basically says if you can incentivize businesses in this case, if you can drive down the cost of labor as you drive it down by having tax breaks, if you can drive down the cost of labor, you are actually incentivizing businesses to hire young people. And you're giving those young people who have those certificates a higher chance of securing employment. They've been unemployed for a very long time. But now that you are incentivizing businesses by reducing the cost of labor and other compliance costs that come as a result of these laws, there's a higher chance that those young people are going to find employment because they are now negotiating for it on their own terms, and they aren't being held back or dictated to by the state that assumes to know what is best for everyone. Now, of course, the counter-arguments against this are obvious. This is a case for exploitation. We are doing away with worker protections. But this really misses 3 important points that I want to come at very fast. The first one being that exploitation as a concept is purely subjective. There is no objective standard of what constitutes exploitation. What is exploitative to one person isn't to another. Second important point here is that we're dealing with low-skilled labor, as I mentioned earlier on. And how the market works is that people's wages are determined by the skills that they have. But the third important point which must be made in this regard is that we have to make trade-offs when it comes to economics. And there are many countries in this regard that have also made trade-offs, like China, and this allowed China to industrialize really by leveraging its massive pool of low-cost labor to industrialize in the country and build factories. So really our main focus here should be on trying to drive down the cost of doing business, drive down labor costs, to incentivize businesses to hire young people, many of whom have been locked out of the labor market in the name of protection and in the name of preventing them from being exploited. So really, in essence, JSEC restores freedom back to people and allows them to negotiate on their own terms for employment and to negotiate their salvation on their own terms without being dictated to by the state. Now, of course, even with all these expectations, I know that people are going to still argue that this is exploitative, and people are welcome to communicate those concerns in the comments section and to explain their rationale and why they think this is not a good intervention. This is a good intervention in my view, because it gives people the freedom to decide, to choose. As the title suggests, people must have the freedom to choose and make decisions for themselves. Whether or not they think they are right must be left to them. It must not be left to the state, really, which keeps promising jobs that never come. So in essence, JSEC allows you to exempt yourself for a period of 2 months. For a period of 2 years. If you have been unemployed for more than 6 months, you can walk into a municipality and you can obtain a certificate and exempt yourself from those laws. If you like this video, please add a like down there. If you want to comment, please do comment. and share your thoughts on JSEC and on this intervention that our latest paper at the Free Market Foundation on Regulation really proposes. Having said that, have a great day further, and don't forget to stay free.